Hi, I'm Heidi Fannin, and I'm excited to share what we've been working on with Wildroot Market, Racine's future, actually very soon future, grocery store, co-op. And this is my friend Colleen Wilkinson, who's been working hard on the board for as long as I have. And we're working together to hopefully share with you some interesting things that have been going on with Wildroot Market. So Colleen, I'm curious, I'd like to ask you, and I'd love people to know what got you interested in having a co-op in Racine.
Well, I'm not from Racine, and I grew up for the most part in Milwaukee, and when I became an adult with my own household, found the Outpost, natural food store. It's Milwaukee's co-op. At the time it just had one location, now it has three. And that's how I became acquainted with co-ops to begin with. But, you know, I grew up in a family that made food themselves every night and we ate around the table, and we did not have any processed food in our house. We didn't talk about it. It just sort of was the way things were. My mom made everything from scratch, and it really was just my orientation. And, you know, when you have kids of your own, you become a little bit more recommitted to your own, you know, your roots a little bit about how you were raised and that sort of thing. And it's still important to me to have dinner around the table every night. And, you know, I guess that...
I like how you said you go back to your roots, and actually that's part of the name. Wildroot Market.
That's true.
You know,
that's true.
And for me too, it's very similar. I grew up eating with the seasons. My family I'm first generation American, and we ate from the garden. So it was just normal to eat around the table. I didn't even realize the value in what I learned as a child, because I wanted to go play with the neighbors. I didn't realize the value that I learned in that time in my life, and how it's impacted me in my life today. And part of the work that I do today is really because of that. What an honor it is for me to know. I mean, a lot of people don't know where potatoes come from, how to dig up potatoes. And I always had to do that before I could go play or pick the beans or harvest whatever was in season. And I feel like our society is starting to come back to that. There seems like to be this huge food movement and an awareness that people want to know where their food comes from, which is one of the big reasons why I think having a co-op in Racine is going to be the best thing we can have. I think it's the best thing for our community right now. Don't you?
I do too. I think, you know, I think one of the things that co-ops do really well is engage with local producers and growers and make accessible to the residents food that is otherwise not able to be purchased easily by the general public. And they do that 365 days a year.
Right.
And they make a wonderful complement to farmers markets. They're really in the same business as farmers markets, which is connecting the farmer with the buyer and making sure that everybody involved is being paid a fair
honest wage.
Exactly,
yep.
Exactly. I think it really honors agriculture.
Absolutely.
And we have a lot of heritage in Wisconsin about that.
Oh
and
my goodness,
I think that a co-op will really honor that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing on so many levels. A co-op is about supporting the local farmer. It's about decreasing food miles. It's about supporting the local community. It's about teaching, having classes, having an awareness of food and where it comes from. It's just on so many levels, such a great addition to Racine.
It is. You know, I'm thinking that it might be helpful to sort of describe sort of the business structure of a co-op and give people sort of a foothold to, you know, in their minds as we're talking about that. So Wildroot Market is going to be a retail grocery store owned cooperatively, and that is really the only thing that makes it, from a business sense, different than the kind of grocery store that you're accustomed to seeing in Racine. And what it means to be cooperatively owned is that it is owned by members of the community who, on a voluntary basis, buy into the co-op in order to help it to be a sustainable business model. And co-ops are forever accepting ownership registrations. It is a part of the business model. And just like any other small business, it is the owners that help to capitalize the business and to get it started off the ground. But it's not a huge investment. Wild Root Markets, it's called a full equity share, is priced at $200. And we're prohibited by law from calling that a lifetime fee, but it is not an annual fee. It is not expected to be a, one of several payments. It is expected to be a one-time payment.
And it's I look at the owners that we have already. Right now we have, is it 340 owners?
We have 340 owners.
343. I just gave you
343,
three.
that's right.
Those are our heroes.
Yes.
Those are our heroes. People that believe in this concept. That's not a new concept. It's it's beautiful. Co-ops are, to me, I look at it. It's a grocery store with a conscience. It's mindful about where its food comes from. It's why buy honey from California if you can get it locally. In many grocery stores, if you go in a typical grocery store, big box grocery store, if you go in and purchase garlic, there's a great chance, a high probability that it's from China. We can grow garlic here. So to me, it's important when you can support the farmer and the local community. I think that's the way we need to go.
I would like to take just a few minutes and talk about that idea that you just mentioned, shopping locally. That's something that we're hearing a lot about, and it's
a buzzword.
It is a buzzword, and I think to a lot of people, it is not a known quantity. They don't really understand what that means, and
the impact it can make.
Right, and that's one of the things that I've learned so much more about. I sort of recognized the idea of the benefits of buying locally when I started working on this with you, but it really has to be one of the biggest areas of growth for me in understanding. And I think the idea of buying locally, helping people to understand that it's really committing yourself to the idea of first trying as hard as you can to first do business with your neighbors, rather than a store that is owned by a corporation that is not located in or invested in
your
Racine
community.
Or southeastern Wisconsin.
And I believe that creates a ripple effect when you shop with your neighbor. It creates that ripple effect, because then your neighbor is thinking more locally, and it's like helping each other out. And if every community had that, helping each other out, that type of feeling, well, like you were saying, go back to that. You were talking about later off of camera how it affects the community in downtimes, how you have a stronger community.
Well, it's really an important point that you're making about the ripple effect. When somebody makes that conscious choice to buy goods or services sourced locally, as close to home as possible, and spends their money doing that, they generate a greater amount of economic activity in their community than if they choose to do business with, again, a chain that is located truly outside of our community.
Right.
In terms of its investment and its headquarters and where it's paying taxes and
Yep,
things like that.
yep.
So, and it's it isn't quite double the amount of economic activity, but it takes in when they drummed up that number, when they researched and figured that out, they take into account how the person that you're doing business with is able to pay their employees, and where do they source their goods and services and the materials that they need for their business, and those are all measurable benefits. And I think that one of the things that I like about the things that I always hear you say is that there are also intangible benefits in terms of sort of quality improvement in the community, the way that we feel about one another, and this is really about growing a community.
It is. I mean, if you walk into a co-op, you feel differently it feels good.
Yes.
And to me, there's an energy there, and I think it feels good because, it's a responsible, ethical business. And let's say an owner wants to have something that we don't have. It would have I know the Outpost, they will order it for you immediately and have that on stock. It's really about the people. And let's say the people wanted to add on a wine section, and then that's something the board would look into, and then it'd be voted on. It's really the people owning the co-op. It's pretty neat. So I'd really like to talk a little bit more about some of the misconceptions of a co-op. Do you want to share some of that with us, Colleen?
Oh, I'd love to. I think a good place to start is spending a little bit more time talking about how a co-op is a little bit different in terms of its business operations than, again, a traditional grocery store. And one of the things that we're really proud to advertise and let people know about is that a co-op participates in its local municipal economy by being a tax-paying for-profit corporation. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that a co-op is a not-for-profit corporation.
Yes, I've noticed that.
And I think that's because of how they behave in the community.
Right.
I mean, you well know that co-ops, part of their operating principles or guiding principles are scripted that goes back hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And co-ops all over the world agree to adhere to 7 operating principles, and you'll usually find them posted in every co-op that you go to visit.
Yep.
One of the first things that we like to talk about, the first principle, is that ownership or membership in the co-op is voluntary and open, as is shopping the co-op. Anybody and everybody can shop the co-op. Everyone is welcome to shop the co-op. People who...
Yes, you do not have to be an owner to shop the co-op.
Not at all.
Anyone can walk off the store and be welcome as an owner. You just wouldn't have to vote.
That's correct. That's right.
Yeah, or some of the discounts.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, those kind of things will certainly be determined by your general manager. I'm not really great at figuring that kind of stuff out, but mm-hmm. whatever perks are set aside for owners themselves are certainly not extended to the general public. But I'm not sure exactly what those will be. I think your point about the vote is a good one. That is the second operating principle. Co-ops are democratically controlled businesses, which means that when an owner buys into the co-op, their ownership, you buy one share and you get one vote. Nobody can buy 2,500 shares. It is just, it's the class of stock, and it prohibits people from having a monopoly on the operations or decision-making and things like that. So the control and the direction of the co-op remains local forever.
Yep.
And that is a really important point. It goes back to, it's a long-standing commitment to that value of shopping locally.
Right. Do you want to talk a little bit about the next one, which is the members' economic participation?
Sure. I think, first of all, clearly it's about buying in that $200 equity share.
Which we have 330.
43.
43.
That's right.
Heroes.
That's right. And it's about shopping the co-op.
Yeah.
And that varies. Every co-op has a very different, they call it sales to owners ratio. Mm-hmm. And so...
Oh, yeah, like we went on that pub crawl. We went and visited several different co-ops in Wisconsin, mm-hmm. and the one in Madison, was it like 98%?
Well, it was
super high percent were owners.
It was around 90%.
It was
amazing.
It
could be 98%, but it was that high.
Yep.
And then the one in La Crosse
was like 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very different.
And they're both thriving businesses.
Both thriving businesses.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but owners, if every one of those 343 owners bought a share in the co-op but never shopped there, that would not bode well for the sustainability of the business. So obviously,
Absolutely.
The ongoing participation
Yep.
is just that.
And co-ops never stop having a are searching for new owners. You always want an ownership drive all the time because people leave town, new people come in town. It's really important that, because I've noticed some people ask me, well, they thought, we're done having owners.
I
Like that's
know.
never ending. That never ends.
This is really a great learning process. You and I have been doing this for 3 years, and I'm learning something new every single day. And I think that having been familiar with co-ops before, as much as effort and thought we put into our ownership drive, you always learn about how you could have messaged something a little bit more clearly. But it's true. It is just it's a standard operating principle and it's prudent for co-ops to continue to accept ownership forever. It might be important to say at this point that I mentioned it briefly before, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes Wild Root Market. Heidi and I work mostly on the idea of ownership development and business relations, essentially, and that's it's a huge job. But we have a finance team that's working together to develop our financial pro forma and ultimately a business plan that will help us. Exactly. They'll help us approach a bank when we're ready. Our site committee has been working tirelessly for 2 solid years. We're long done with the checking out sites around town. I think they looked at 22, made recommendations to the board. We had to vote on 3 to include in a market feasibility study that provided us with sales projections. And, we're still working tirelessly to figure out which site is going to provide Wild Root Market with the best financial feasibility, and that is our responsibility to the wider ownership.
Yes.
It's a terribly difficult and painstaking process. I think we all thought we were going to come out of that market feasibility study with an answer, and we were like, oh, that's just 1/3 of the answer. So
exactly.
In our job, if we want a solid startup, we know we have to register 1,500 owners by the time we open the doors. And we want a solid startup. We are
absolutely.
We are making sure that we approach the development of this business in the most prudent and wise way possible. And so we're a far way away from 1,500 owners, but it's not daunting to me. Racine has already responded so enthusiastically and overwhelmingly that I know that it's just a matter of creating that tipping point. We had a rush of ownership in August when we extended the special designation of founding owner to people who joined during August to help us fund that market study. And then, of course, we have decided to distinguish all owners following August until the day we open the doors as pioneering owners who help us set about opening the store.
Yeah, because it's because of the owners that the store is opened. It's because of them. And it's neat. We Eat Right Racine did a movie called Fresh, and this was way in the beginnings of. We were working. Wild Root Market has been working as a team for about a few months, right? 4 months.
I think it was 4 months. I think we first met in November, and we did that in March.
Yes, and then it was just when I said there's a group of citizens in Racine working on a co-op, and we didn't have Wild Root Market, the name yet. The audience was just like, just amazed with excitement.
400 people.
Yeah, over 400 people
Yeah.
came to this event, and I'm like, there are people in our area that really care about where their food comes from. There's a demand for this, but again, it takes a lot of work, and I'm amazed. We have an amazing committee that we work with, right? I'm so impressed with all the work that everyone's doing, and everyone has very clear, defined roles, and we're just going to town, and no one gets paid for this. This is all
That's true.
coming from our hearts.
I was remembering recently that in the early stages of sort of trying to determine, there's a financial formula, how much an equity share would have to cost in Racine, speaking to the experts that were available to us, highly qualified people who've been doing this forever. And I remember that gentleman telling me that after 5 years, a co-op in the community that Racine's size, Racine and Kenosha's size, could expect to have about 4,500 owners. And, I thought, I did happen to know how many owners the outpost had at this time I was talking to him, and I thought, wow, that's not quite as many, but the community's a different size. But it only recently hit me that those same experts who have recommended to us to have 1,500 members by the time we open for that solid startup are also telling us that we'll have 4,500 at 5 years. That means we have to register 1,500 owners before we even open our doors.
Right.
1/3 of that 4,500 people at 5 years has to be registered before we even open.
Right.
And I thought, boy, it's interesting. I mean, we are all doing this as unpaid staff, essentially.
Right.
After the doors open, they'll have a membership coordinator.
Absolutely.
A paid staff person. But,
Yep.
we have a big job.
We have a big job, and it's wonderful having like different businesses opening up their place for us to speak, and that's actually something that we want to talk to any business that was willing to have us for a lunch and learn, or we've been out in the community a lot. Right, yesterday I was at Wilson's coffee shop for a couple hours. We have this out and about that Colleen actually formulated, and we're out and about, right? We're Envy, the first Friday, or no, all Fridays in May, and so we're at Wilson's once a week in June, and we're open to anyone's ideas if they want to share, because we're on Facebook. Join us on Facebook, because we want to hear what you have to say and your thoughts. Matter of fact, in the beginning, when we're trying to decide where we want to co-op, we're asking the community, because a co-op is the community. It's owned by the community. So it's really important to get people's feedback and what they want. But now we'll get back to the cooperative principles, okay? So we're at autonomy and independence.
I think that this is a really empowering and guiding principle that a co-op adheres to. And what it really just means is that a co-op, because it is democratically controlled by its owners, it has to remain so. And so while it is very invested in the community, and it may enter into partnerships with other businesses or the government or in any number of undefined ways, it cannot ever do so if it compromises the autonomy of its own business, or if it compromises the independence of its own business. And that is something that sometimes when I think it's a guiding principle that helps us to think long term. In a business climate where we're thinking very short term lately, I think it's a really nice long term stronghold there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So another cooperative principle is education, training, and information. And this isn't not only for the public, it's also for the employees. It's for anyone. And they'll have different classes. And it could be anything. It could be canning classes. It could be why eat seasonally, the importance of eating seasonally. It could be cooking on a budget. It could be grass-fed versus conventional. What's the difference? It could be anything like that. But there'll be a great understanding when you walk in the store, and let's say you're asking for something specific, the employees will be well trained. So to know exactly what you're talking about and to take you to where it is. So it's a really, I think, when I've gone to different co-ops, how the help that I have found, how well the staff was trained is so impressive that it makes me want to come back. It's so important. So how about number 6?
Boy, we've had a lot of really good experience with number 6. Number 6 is cooperation amongst cooperatives. And boy, where to start with the bevy of cooperation we've been the recipients of. When we toured the co-ops in about 2 years ago, we made a phone call to these co-ops and let them know that Racine was looking into starting a co-op, and they welcomed us and set up 2 or 3 hour tours for us and conversations with
managers.
Yep. And they rolled out the red carpet really rolled out the red carpet. And
that's what's, it's just so cool because they're so cooperative. They want you to
Yes.
succeed. It's not like there's this competition. They want you to succeed. They want to give you any information to help you. They would answer
That's
anything.
exactly
It was
right.
really nice that they spent that time with us.
That's right. There are a few corporations that are available to us regionally and nationally that are development corporations specifically geared towards the startup of co-ops, the Food Co-op Initiative, Co-op Development Services, the University of Wisconsin Center for Cooperatives is a wonderful resource. We haven't done much talking to them, but we've been pulling things off their website for sure. The idea that the information and the best practices that are always being developed, everything is current, that it's not proprietary information. The idea that that best practices should be shared to create an abundant and vibrant cooperative, in whatever community is trying to host one. It's such a welcome thing. I think when our board president, Alita Harper-Toke, talks about her experience at the annual meeting for the Outpost Natural Foods in Milwaukee, and hearing the general manager turn to her ownership, people who were shoppers and owners of Outpost Natural Foods in Milwaukee, and hearing her say, I want each and every one of you with the means to do so to buy a share of Wild Root Market in Racine, Wisconsin, because it's the right thing to do. And, that was really, you don't hear that in a different, more traditional business
No.
culture. And it's amazing. It has made this job much easier than it would otherwise be.
And the last principle is concern for the community, which to me, it's the right thing to do. I'm just tagging off of that because it really feels like I know in my heart it's the right thing to do. Concern for the community, again, decreasing the food miles. Food miles is just basically, where does your carrot come from? Does it come from 1,000 miles away or does it come from a mile away? So you decrease the food miles. If we can make that impact in our community, I mean, that's just one thing. Supporting the local farmer, supporting local businesses. I know that the Outpost in particular, and I believe many co-ops, they take a day a week, like let's say a Wednesday, and a percentage of the income earned that day would go to benefit some organization that would be chosen. So it's really about giving back and partnership with the community. So, I think we really touched on concern for the community earlier on in this segment because really that's I think what the most of it is about is the community.
Well, it is, and the seventh principle that you're talking about right now is really a byproduct of the other ones.
Yeah.
Because decisions are being made locally by people who live here and work here and are invested in their community. They naturally have concern for the community. So decisions about how the co-op is going to behave as a citizen,
Right.
is made by neighbors.
Right.
I suppose it's time to talk about how people can buy in as an owner of Wild Root Market or otherwise get involved.
Well, it's like find us. We are trying to be as easily accessible as possible. We have out and abouts, and you put that in the paper, right? That's in the paper. You can see it on Facebook. Go to our website, www.wildrootmarket.com, and that's a great way to always know what we've got going on. Sign up for our newsletter. We try not to inundate people with tons of newsletters, about once a month. We always like to share a recipe too, a favorite recipe, and then the ongoings of what we're doing. It's not hard to find us, but it's important to go check it out because it's pretty exciting to see all the places and the connections that we've already made.
Right.
Am I missing anything?
Well, I think our founding team, the people who sort of were around from the beginning, I guess sort of naturally by attrition shrunk to about between 9 and 12 people. Our board consists of 9 people, and we are constantly expanding our work team, and we are on an ongoing basis training people to be members of a speakers bureau. And this training is really helpful, whether or not you want to just be able to talk to your friends about it. Really, we'd like you to represent us in the public at some of these, really very becoming more and more frequent, publicity activities that we've got going on. But we've got ongoing trainings going on. There's committees that need members, committed volunteers to help actualize this project. And whether you're an owner or somebody who is very emotionally invested in the project but hasn't made the financial commitment yet, we welcome your involvement.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be, it can be really a lot of fun.
Yes.
It could be 3 hours a month. It could be more. It could be, but I think it's not this daunting task. It can actually be, I find it feeds me. It's exciting. It's exciting to be out in the community. But different people, like, technology, if you've got some technology experience that you could share, or marketing, any expertise, we're open to learning from you too.
Yes.
Yeah, so join us on Facebook.
Keep an eye on the community calendar in the Journal Times.
Yep. Sign up for the newsletter, and then you'll be able to find out where we are. I'm pretty sure. Absolutely. So thank you so much for having us, Car 25. We really appreciate it. This is just one other way for us to get the message out about Wilder Market.